With that, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome and thank you everyone for being here. The board did meet in closed session and we have a reportable. In closed session, the board considered an injury claim filed by a community member against the district. The claim revolved around an incident that occurred at COS Theater on June 17, 2013. After consideration of the claim, the board voted unanimously, 4-0 to reject it. Hereby direct the district to communicate this rejection to the claimant and her counsel. Okay, Diana, can you lead us in our pledge? Please stand.
Ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, per board policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time, either on the agenda item or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker with a maximum time of 15 minutes per item, unless otherwise extended by the board. Do we have any public comments concerning items on the agenda? Any public comments concerning?
I'll make it official.
Sure.
I'm requesting that we move information items 2 and 3 up to prior to the reports, because we have division chairs here who need to get back to the first day of class.
Okay, I have that on my agenda. We will definitely accommodate that. Do we have any public comments concerning items not on the agenda? Okay. Sure. We come up to the podium, say your name, please. Yes.
Hi, I'm Dave Robinson. I'm the chairperson, chair of Language Arts Division, and I had to be here anyway. And one of the things with our program review that's going to be looked at, Jennifer had us mention significant accomplishments. And it occurred to me there are some significant accomplishments, not really of the division, but of individual members. And so I wanted to brag.
Of course, we like that.
A person that we just hired last summer with her new master's in creative writing, lives in Three Rivers, an artsy type person. Turns out she's a New York Times best-selling author and a screenwriter. Her name is Christina Lynch, and she is one half of the author, the writing duo of they publish under the name of Magnus Flight. This is the book that came out last year, City of Dark Magic. My wife and I just finished it over the winter break. It's wonderful and kind of fun. It's a thrill ride, kind of fantasy, adventure, murder mystery with a 400-year-old dwarf. And this has just been published. Christina is she's leaving tomorrow. Penguin Books is sending her on a book tour. This book is currently number 54 on the Amazon book list, and it's rising. She'll be in Portland on Wednesday, Seattle on Thursday, Denver on Saturday, Fort Collins Sunday, Phoenix, then Houston, Naperville, and then back after the week after our holiday break. Anyway, it's not often that Visalia can claim, or COS can claim to be the home of an author that's well known. And she told me this morning she has an essay that's coming out in the the Wall Street Journal coming up, so I'll let you know. Another new instructor that was hired at the same time last summer, Jamie Moore, also has a new novella that's come out, and I haven't had a chance to read it, but it's getting really good reviews, and I think our library will start carrying all of it. So I just wanted to brag.
Thank you. You can come anytime with that kind of news. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes.
I just want to give you an update on the Kennedy Center American Festival Theater tour coming up. We just received the 1st of January. Our dates, we are doing first night, Thursday. That would be February 13th. We load in at 9 in the morning. We have 4 hours to do the set, the lights, get everything ready to go. We have 2 performances at 2, and I believe 7 or 7:30. In between, they have a respondent that's going to watch the show again and do a response to the cast and crew as well as the audience. And then we have 1 hour to get out of the theater. So it's going to be an exciting day.
Well, good luck.
So you got the theater space. It's at the Los Angeles Theater Center. They have 4 theaters. We're in the bigger theater, which seats 500, the Tom Bradley Theater. Unfortunately for us, it is not a proscenium theater. They don't have one, so we have to reblock the show. It's going to be a whole new mount, so it's going to be quite an exciting next 3 weeks.
Are you coming on your fundraising?
We had a great one from Educational Employees Credit Union for $5,000 grant, so that's a good start. I just paid the $3,000 registration fees for all 40 kids going, and we have 6 kids that are actually going to the Irene Ryans, which is the scholarship fund where they have to perform, and then they get judged, and they go on and actually go to Kennedy Center if they make it in Washington. So that'd be really cool. So unfortunately for us, the first competition is Thursday morning at our load-in time, so we're losing 6 of our best people to the Irene Ryans while we're loading in, so we're scrambling to figure out what's going on. But yes, Tim Foster has been doing a great job, and we thank ECU.
Great, good to hear. Okay, we will go to program review. Dr. Lasona.
Thank you.
So we are on items number 2 and 3 under information for everybody.
And thank you for making the adjustment. We have, it's the first day of school, which is a tough day to have everybody here for this. So I'm just going to give you an overview of the comprehensive program reviews from 2013, as well as 2 that were resubmittals. And so the first thing, and I think you guys have the PowerPoint in your board packet, if you want to follow along. And that's under the information number 2. So this is an overview of program review for academic programs. There's currently, in our current program review, and we're going to be talking to you in a second about the reformed, revised, new template for program review. But the current one has mission, effectiveness, the program and course outcomes, instructional support services, research, leadership and government, and then a program summary for each program. We also have that for administrative programs. It's very similar. They discuss their mission, their effectiveness and efficiency, their planning and outcomes, leadership and government, the resources that they have and that they need, and then their summary and prioritization. So today we're going to review the 5 comprehensive reviews that were done last year. And so they were turned in October for last year. And the first one's the fire technology. And John Banansky is here from fire technology to answer any questions that you have. In language arts, David Robinson, who just presented, will be able to answer any questions that we have. He's the chair there. Math and engineering and science, Jared Birch is the math and engineering chair, and Jesse Wilcoxon is the science chair. And neither of them, due to conflicts of time, could be here tonight, but Dr. Techo, their dean, is here over there in his bright COS colors that I couldn't see from here to answer questions. And then for computer services, Mr. Hollabaz over there too, and Tim Hollabaz, the lead of that. We will also be presenting briefly on the foundation, and so Tim Foster can answer questions about that. And our Learning Resource Center and our new director, Mary Catherine, is here, Mary Catherine Oxford is here to answer questions on that. Okay, so the good news is of our 5 programs that went through comprehensive program review, all received a proficient. As you can see at the bottom here, if I can figure this thing out, for academic, there's 3 areas: exemplary, proficient, and insufficient. And for administrative, there's excellent, satisfactory, and not satisfactory. So all 5 received proficient. I'm going to start with fire technology, and we're going to talk about 3 things for each group: their prior year accomplishments, and then any major changes, and then any their prioritization for the future. So they had an increase in student success across all courses, including the Fire Academy. They focused on their student learning outcomes and their program learning outcomes, and started the first phase in data gathering for their student learning outcomes. And then they are completing the process for 2 courses that were initiated through program review or through Curriculum and updating their curriculum. So major changes between the last one, their last comprehensive review, which would have been 6 years ago, is that they moved to Hanford. That's a pretty major change, but they've been able to improve classroom space, office space, and storage for all of the equipment and that they need. They also updated all of their currency for their curriculum and developed their student learning outcomes. They also developed a recruiting program to increase participation in diversity, including specifically for women in the division, in their department. As far as students, excuse me. They, for the future, they'll be going through reaccreditation from the California Fire Training, State Fire Training, in order to maintain their course curriculum. And we know that, as we know, although it's a mini version of our accreditation, it's a big process, and we've just been through it with our physical therapy assistant program and our nursing program, so we'll be here to help them with whatever they need as they go through that reaccreditation. And also, they completed all of their program level outcomes and their student learning outcomes and are in the process of putting their data into our new program, TrackDat. And then they're increasing the recruitment of women and minority students that reflect our demographics. Okay. The next group is Language Arts Division. So for their prior year accomplishments, as we've talked about extensively here with curriculum, that they had a few repeatable courses, so they updated all of those repeatable courses, and then rewrote their course outlines for their Spanish, journalism, English, and ESL departments. They've assessed all of their outcomes and entered their results in TrackDat, and then they wrote program outcomes for their degree and certificate programs, and those were specifically ESL, Spanish, English, and journalism. They moved to a 3-year cycle for assessing their outcomes, and ended a long-standing portfolio read program that they had for English 251, and it's now focusing on their core courses. They began scheduling courses in Tulare for English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And then they have a new writing center coordinator, a new chairperson, David, and a brand new dean, Karen Roberts, who's here. This is, I think, their 3rd dean in this 6-year cycle, including myself. So they've been had a lot of changes in the past 6 years. So, and you cannot read this, so I'm going to put my glasses on to be able to see it. But they had a lot of priorities. What I like when you look at the priorities, and I should have mentioned this with fire, is when you look at our district objectives, many of the priorities relate directly to our district objectives, which was the goal of our current program review and our upcoming program reviews, that their priorities align with our objectives. But one of the major things, which is one of our objectives, is their first one, which is to obtain permanent funding for the COS Writing Center. And as you know, Superintendent Carasosa spoke about that at our convocation, and it's also one of our big goals of me and Christine Staton working on this semester. They had several positions that they wanted to hire, and including, they did receive one position this year for an English professor, and as well as one last year. They, if you get down to number 9, and they talked about this, is that they, getting all of their assessment data updated into TrackDat. They want to work on bringing all of their assessment cycles, and then also working on a pathway program from the English through the English sequence that's helping students get through the sequence effectively, and that also aligns directly with our objectives. And then their last one is working with the Costa leadership to designate at least one full-time English faculty member as having their primary duties at the 2 centers. And so that's one of their prioritizations for the future. Okay, for math and engineering, they also, in alignment with our objective, and then also we've talked a lot about the transfer model curriculum and this push from the state to have our students, all of our degrees, be transfer model ready so that our students can transfer directly to the 4-year colleges. And so they actually made some changes to their calculus sequence so that it would align with the course topics they need to have to make that transfer curriculum. English program level outcomes in all of their areas. And there are changes since last review is they now have a 3-year cycle for all of their assessments. And then they also did the analysis of their assessments, their courses, their outcomes and everything. They closed the loop in spring 2013, and they're mapping in the last sentence here, you can see, oh, I did the wrong one. They are mapping their course level outcomes to our program level outcomes, which is really kind of the next step everybody's doing. So making sure that our courses align with our program outcomes. And then their plans for the future, they also have very small type here, but they wanted, again, hiring, and they did receive a full-time math position this year and one last year. They want to work on some scheduling issues with rooms in John Muir, some IT issues, implementing their 3-year assessment cycle, implementing the calculus sequence we talked about. They're going to purchase smart pins, and that's a good question, because I looked it up to see, sorry, I'm trying to find exactly what they were, so I bet you Dr. Techa will be able to answer that in the question part. And then also to be on more campus-wide committees, which they've done a great job about representing us on all of our committees across the past year. And then for engineering, they want to look at if an engineering transfer model curriculum comes available, they want to look at that, updating their outlines, hiring a full-time position, and then increasing their supplies. So again, those do fall well with our objectives and our accreditation. Okay, for the science division, their prior year accomplishments, they hired a full-time instructor, they purchased laptops, they had, and these are 2 that I underlined also and couldn't find exactly what they are, Vernier data acquisition units and optical benches. And then they purchased laboratory equipment and entered all of their courses into curriculum. Their, sorry, I went too fast. Their, what's happened since their last program review is they've aligned their biology and chemistry courses with those course identifications for the transfer model curriculums. They've completed their assessment cycle. They've increased biology and chemistry course offerings at Tulare and Hanford campuses. They're using and utilizing and developing a botanical garden, and they've developed a new AS degree in geology. So that was pretty exciting. Again, as you can see, these all align with, or many of these align directly with our objectives. Okay, prioritization for the future. They also have very small type in their 12 objectives or priorities, but they did, number 2, they were given a full-time chemistry position this year. And they, there's several positions that they want to get. They want to get dual monitors for their faculty, increasing their supplies. Number 8 directly relates to our objectives, which is developing rubrics for their course and program level outcomes. Number 9, their transfer model curriculum. And number 10 was working on their sequence and making sure students are able to go through the sequence and that they have the appropriate instructional support services that students can get through the sequence effectively. And creating a resource library, and then purchasing a printer to use with their laptops. Science division. Our next one is computer services. And so last year, their accomplishments were incorporating copy and mail and audio visual into technology. Those were under different areas, and were moved into technology last year. And then in support of our district objectives, they installed installation and ongoing support of computer and network systems at the Tulare Center, and then implementing the electronic student education plan for student services. Since last program review, they've, as mentioned, they've added 2 departments into their area, copy and mail and printing. And they brought the new center, Tulare, on board, which, as you can imagine, was a lot of work for computer services, and increased our wireless access points for our students. Their goals and priorities for the future are continued support and maintenance of our systems, adding more wireless access points, and reporting and data collection needs for our accreditation standards. And I know they've been working on numerous committees with our research office on aligning all of that information. Okay, so we have 2 programs that we're resubmitting, and because they had an unsatisfactory last year, they were able to resubmit and update, and both of them passed that update. The first one is the foundation, and a couple of their results is they developed an agreed upon case message for why community members should give to COS. They established efficiency goals and gathering and a way to gather baseline data. They established a donor management software system and a project funding mechanism that aligns with our strategic objectives. And for the Learning Resource Center, they increased their hours for the Tulare Center and the Hanford Center libraries. They reallocated staff. They've updated their computers. They've gotten new laptops for the tutorial center and the math lab. And information competency, which was something that I know the librarians wanted for a very long time, is now part of our GE requirements. Their priorities of the future is to hire a full-time librarian, and I'm happy to say that that was approved as well. So they'll be hiring a full-time librarian to work in our Hanford and Tulare centers, updating their print collections and online collections, and working with the foundation to increase the availability of textbooks in all set locations. Okay, so that's a very brief overview, and we have people here to answer your questions if you have some.
I would just like to maybe hear from each of them briefly on their comments on what you reported on. Is that okay, or what? Any comments?
Give them a time. No. Yeah, John, you want to go first?
Or anything that's changed since, I guess this was reported.
Good evening, my name is John Banansky, I'm the Fire Technology Coordinator. Well, some things that have changed, for the good or bad, I can honestly say that we have taken a step backward in our recruitment for women in the fire service. Last academy, we had 6 females in there, and we started the 2014 academy last Monday, and we started with 1. So we are making a valiant effort, but if you look out there in the community in the fire service today, there's really only about 6% of the workforce is female, considering they make up 51% of the population. It's still a very difficult profession to recruit for. Things that we've done differently changed. Realistically, the main goal we have out there is that as soon as the state gives us the word that we're going to re-accreditate and move forward with that process, but due to budget cuts, state fire training lost the field reps that went out to do the accreditation, so they have like a 3-year backlog, so they're starting this year with the re-accreditation process, but they're starting with the 3-year backlog, so as fast as they do to re-update that will be the big mission out there. Good part about it is our FTEs, our classes are pretty full. I'm going to Hanford this evening to teach a course that has the max enrollment of 30 people enrolled in it, so we are seeing the enrollment stay high, and the good part about it is that we're seeing in the fire service some more transition to the importance of not just getting the vocational education side of the fire academy out of the way, but also continuing on and completing their AS degree, and now moving much more of the fire service is moving towards a bachelor's environment for federal officers. So we're seeing that transition. Many long overdue years to get there.
John, has your enrollment been consistent throughout the last several years, or have you seen some
Peaks and valleys. So we have seen the enrollment in the fire academy not downturn significantly, but we did have some lows in the fire academy, and I think that was primarily because of the economic downturn. You didn't see a lot of local government or agencies hiring. So it's kind of like, it's not really where I want to go. But where we made up the difference was we saw a dramatic improvement in our semester-long courses that we offer for an AS degree in fire service. So we were pretty much filling up those courses. So the more traditional firefighter that already has a job was going back to school in order to do that. Part of what we've done in transition to is the course I'm teaching tonight is we're offering the majority of our semester-long courses now as completely distance education or hybrid of once or twice a month on campus, and the rest of it via Blackboard. So that's been a transition, and that's pretty much what we hear from our customers, the students that are attending, that are working shift work in the fire service. That makes it easier. But we have this academy, we've gone back up again. So I think the lull has hit, and now people are seeing hiring again, so they're starting to come back in.
Did you see any drop off when you moved from by side?
No, actually, and for the fire academy itself, we go to a lot of the departments, Tulare City, Visalia Fire, things like that, that we have cooperative agreements with all of them. So we're on the move to a lot of different sites, like Kings County, Station 4, and places like that. So for the fire academy, we would see it. I would say that first year or so, the bigger issue was honestly to my adjunct faculty. The fire technology has no full-time staff. As a matter of fact, I've changed positions and I'm now the deputy chief in the city of Clovis, so my availability has even been limited. And there was more of a difficult transition getting the adjunct instructors to be receptive to go to Hanford. And kind of when they were told, well, you really have no choice in the matter, it's either go there or don't. And after they showed up there and started working there, it's never been a problem. But I would say I had more resistance there than I did for natural students.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
David Robinson is our chair for Language Arts Division, and just a reminder, it's in addition to English, they have foreign languages, journalism, English as a second language, American Sign Language.
Portuguese.
Yeah, foreign languages.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all the foreign languages.
I don't have a lot to add to what Jennifer's presentation showed. We have had a lot of unsettledness in language arts. We've had some catastrophic illness. We found out sadly that one of our adjunct instructors passed away we just found out, breast cancer. And in addition to her, she dropped her classes in the middle of last semester. We had 2 full-time instructors that had to drop their classes 2 weeks in, one with valley fever, and he's back teaching one class now. That it's been one thing after another, and we had a temporary dean last year. We have a brand new dean that came in the middle of the semester. We lost our secretarial help, and so Elaine Hort is in our office helping out until we can get someone. It seems like this is the new normal, is being in a state of flux, and at our division meeting on Friday, I just did a little riff on the word flux. The Latin root means flow, and we get from that word flush. The Latin word can mean flowing, droop, perish, and it can also mean spring forward and proceed. And it's so I guess I'm at that point where I'm realizing that the forces that are pushing us, we don't control them. We can see, sometimes it feels like we're sinking and drooping and perishing, but it's, I think I'm trying to get us to like have the mindset of surfers, we're just catch a wave and ride it. And we don't control it, but we go forward. I hope you don't have any questions about that. So, and then I had the flu over this winter break, and influenza comes from the same root. So.
On your prioritization plans, item 13 discussed or talks about, I guess, the desirability of having a full-time faculty member at each of the 2 centers. Describe what you think are options.
Yeah, from my perspective, the problem we have now is that language arts is assigned a certain number of faculty offices to assign to our faculty, full-time faculty, by contract. But they're all on the Visalia campus. We have a full-time instructor, Josh Geis, who was hired specifically to anchor our English presence in Hanford. But he doesn't have a language arts office assigned to him in Hanford. He's teaching a full load in Hanford, so Hanford is providing him an office and a computer. There's a perfectly good office that sits empty that is assigned to him on this campus with a computer and phone. We're going to hire a new faculty member, but I can't make that office available. And then starting last year, Susan Jensen has agreed to take her full load as an instructor in Tulare, and it's the same thing. So we have 2.
You've described the problem.
Okay.
What are the obstacles?
The obstacles, it would require, scheduling rights. When I prepare a schedule of all the language, let's say, English offerings, we choose according to seniority. So if there are classes in Hanford that instructors with higher seniority than Joshua Geis pick, that means he needs to pick classes in Visalia or Tulare. So there's no guarantee. Now, in fact, no one wants to go out to Hanford except for people who live out there. So Josh has always maintained a full load there, Susan in Tulare, but there's no guarantee that he'll have a full load there, so he won't give up his office on the Visalia campus.
Understand. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Techo is here representing math and English.
Can I speak from here?
Can I speak from your turn?
Yeah.
Is that okay, Terry?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. The math and science divisions are blessed with two very, very large federal grants. So we have been purchasing lots of digital equipment where physics and chemistry are changing. They're not the chemistry classes that we took when we were in college. They require machines that measure things for you and then put them into a computer. And then the students spend more time analyzing the data using electronic means. So that's what the department has been purchasing a lot of. We have a lot of growth there. We've expanded into Tulare quite a bit. It's a wonderful facility. And the science faculty who use that facility are very pleased by what they see there. So we have a strong chemistry program now in Tulare. Our anatomy is very strong. General bio has gained a good, strong foothold there. In Hanford, we've expanded into geography. We have physics and chemistry and lots of biology classes. So we're very happy. Unfortunately, it's largely staffed by adjuncts. We would in the future, when we do hire someone, hope to, just like English, hire full-timers into Tulare and into Hanford. Other than that, our students are doing exceptionally well. One of our grants is going to be introducing undergraduate research. So our students have been very successful with posters at national programs, and we should have quite a few research posters presented for the next 3 years, primarily in veterinary medicine and in biological sciences. That's it.
The smart pen that's alluded to, and that sounds like something I'd like to have. Is that the?
Well, you take a pen like this, you're writing, and it's recording digitally what you're saying and what you're writing, and it saves it as a document that you can post online. So the faculty members, someone can email a faculty member and say, I can't get question number 36. So he'll write the problem out and explain how to solve it, and then using this pen, plug it into his computer, and it'll be posted, and he'll email it to the kid, the explanation.
I don't.
But it can't read my writing.
Well, yeah, unfortunately but with the explanation, they can figure it out. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Very nice, Jack.
You know what? Everyone's been commenting, it's a lot of character for me. I'm usually dressed quite drably.
We have Tim Holivar here to talk about computer services.
Can I talk from right here? Can I talk from right here?
That's a little close.
Pretty much was covered in what Jennifer showed you today, but you know, all the things that you have just heard here on every one of those reports, there was a technology component. So our portion is to support every single one of those technology components. You know, Robert talked about the smart pen. He also talked about the new devices for collecting data. Well, all that data goes into a computer, and having the computers available to the students to do all that research and do all the analysis, that's some of the things that we do. You also see a lot of students, a lot of faculty members, you know, holding little devices around. Well, our hope, and it was in our program review, is no matter where you go, on this campus, on the Hanford campus, on the Tulare campus, you have wireless access. So you have access to all the data that we have. Another thing that we've done based on COS 2.0 is if you go to our website now, there is a wealth of information that is easily findable. And that is one of the greatest things, because we collect data, we also make it available, but if data is not in a manner in which helps a person make a decision, it's not a lot of help. So one of the goals we have is make all that information not only findable, but relevant to the decision makers, whether it's management, staff, faculty, or students. So, any questions?
I got on the website at 8 o'clock and maybe a little late on Friday because I was able to come to convocation, but logged in, just typed in COS, took me, 15 seconds to get live streamed in. So anybody that wanted to watch it, there was no excuse. All you got to do is type in COS, and you guys had it right there on the front page. That was great. So thank you. You weren't late. I'll make it with my computer. Any other questions of Tim?
And our last two, Tim Foster for the foundation.
Well, I have the luxury of addressing this group once a month, so I feel like I've kept you pretty well up to date as where we are, and I have another opportunity in just a few moments. So I won't take too much of your time. I just wanted to illustrate to you that this was a rewrite of a program review, and so I had to do quite a bit of revise, and a lot of what was put in there was, for lack of a better way to put it as a pun, it was foundational work. There was case work, there was baseline data for gathering that needed to be done in order to really fit this square peg of the foundation into this round hole that is program review. And so I think we accomplished that. We are gathering that data, and I think as I learn how to use that tool and use this tool of all the submissions from all the other departments as opportunity to discover ways that the foundation can support the district in more meaningful ways in the future, I think it's going to be a great alignment of the foundation with program review in the district. It's going to be a great tool.
Thank you very much.
And then our last one is the Learning Resource Center. I just wanted to comment with the foundation and the Learning Resource Center. Both Tim and Mary Catherine Oxford came in taking over a department that was on an unsatisfactory program review. So each of them, the very first thing they had to do was gather data, find information, and write a satisfactory program review. So Mary Catherine's with us for about another week, as you can tell.
Not much longer.
Not much longer. So as Jennifer mentioned, I'm Mary Catherine Oxford, the LRC director. I think I mentioned this in my interview. Congratulations if you hired me. So, which was exciting.
At least they told you.
Yeah, at least you got a little more.
You got it done to the base.
So, I just want to update you. We actually moved faster than we expected. So, we've talked about Jennifer talked about the GE requirement. That's all up, ready to go, and right now we're just working on promoting classes and making students aware that that's a GE requirement, working with the counseling office to do that. As Tim mentioned, he's helped out in a lot of different departments, and one of those is improving our Wi-Fi in the library. Sometimes we get overloaded. As far as priorities for the future, the hire the full-time librarian, Jennifer mentioned that is done, or it's in the process of, so we're talking about opening that and flying it. For the fall semester, that'll be a 50-50 position, half-time in Tulare and half-time in Hanford, which will allow for a lot better coverage. As you can see, our priority was always expanding hours and services at both sites. For our collection, if you ran a report, the print collection, the average book is from 1970 decade. I want to fix that. So what we did was, this is the first year, Stan mentioned it in convocation, this is the first year that we got instructional material money. So $10,000 of that is going to go to improving the library collection. And then the third one, working with the foundation, we're very pleased to announce that we have about $11,100 that textbooks that are purchased for this semester. We will continue to work with the foundation to make those textbooks available for students each semester and process them as fast as we can get them into the system for students. Great. Any questions?
We appreciate as a board, I'm hoping it was okay to take the extra time for program review because we realize how important it is. It's kind of what we as a board need in order to make sure that our policies and that we're meeting our objectives. And it all starts for me, I feel that way, that the program review is just instrumental. Well, I appreciate all of you being here and taking questions and answering you. And I know the program's going to change. We're going to hear about that now, but I just, it's critical. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, now on to the next piece.
Yeah, and this one, Cindy and Thea don't have to run out, but since it goes together, we moved number 3 up as well. So as you know, when we did, when we reviewed, in all of our changes with accreditation, one of the things that we're doing is assessing all of our processes. So the Institutional Program Review Committee was charged with updating and evaluating its processes and developing a new calendar, template, training, and data for program review. So our co-chairs of the Program Review Committee are Cindy Delane and Dr. Thea Trimble, and so they're going to present to you the updated process.
You know, a year ago at retreat, we talked a lot about this.
Yes, we did. And it's all changing.
It's all changing.
So put that aside.
Okay.
And sorry, Tim, you just got to know it. And
That's
now
right.
it's gone. That's right. And you'll have a lot more company having to learn a new one now. The Program Review Committee started by looking at the new planning manual as well as the resource allocation manual, and we basically just went through and picked out all the things that the manuals had that were related to program review. So before we started to change anything, we looked at what we were charged to do. So what does program review have to do? So the first page that you were given is basically just right out of those manuals listing some of the things. So from the integrated planning manual, we have to analyze data, we have to identify strengths and weaknesses, report on prior year's actions, and you can read through those. In the resource allocation manual, program review is the method by which above base budget requests will go through. Allocation rubric uses program reviews as a part of the criteria for whether or not funding will be allocated. Funding, an important part of our planning and also resource allocation is when plans are implemented, when funds are allocated. The following year, the programs will have to report on their effectiveness so that we can really start looking at if we give money to this, does it have the desired outcome? Are we being effective in our resource allocation? So those are just a few of those. And then finally, we had 2 action plans in our show cause report that were specifically related to program review. So again, we pulled those out. So what our committee did was look at all these and say, okay, this is what we have to do. Now how can we build a program review that can do this and can be done annually? In our planning model, it has to be annual. So that necessitated substantial changes. And so Cindy's going to take over one of the main changes. One of the main changes, you'll see in your packet, is what we define now as units for program review. So based on the Program Review Committee's research that we did extensively to other successful program reviews in other community colleges, and in consultation with Dr. Eva Conrad, we developed, and this was approved, units. So each of these units will be conducting a program review, where in contrast, you saw just now a division, like the language arts division did a program review and separated it into ESL and Portuguese and other components. Where this is different is it's all individual units. Now, there were, we went through all the pros and cons of this, and really, because the new process and format is streamlined, it's to the point, it is based on the platform of TrackDat, which we're currently using now in SLOs and PLOs and SAOs. Sorry for all the student learning outcomes, program learning outcomes, sorry.
We know those.
You do? Okay, I wasn't sure. Oh, we're good with those. I shouldn't be using those. So it's based on the platform TrackDat, which many folks are used to, and we're going to show you a little bit of that.
So these were approved, so every single unit will be doing program review every single year. And the timeline is the same. They are again due October 15th, same as before. One of the differences, the administrators, primarily the deans, in most areas it falls to the deans, will ensure that the program review is complete, that the document is complete and is thorough, and the questions and prompts have been answered. So much of the responsibility of this is going to fall to the deans before this is sent forward to either vice presidents or the president. So we will be, myself, I said we, as a dean, actively participating in program review. So that, again, too, is a shift from the previous program review. And then, lastly, we want to, in your last handout in your packet, and Dee and I decided it would be nice to show you, and we don't always trust technology. Should say that.
Well, maybe you have to log off for us to log on.
You're right.
To show it to you.
Tim left,
Oh, did Tim leave? Okay, good.
Keep one and pass the rest.
Yeah, keep one and pass along. The program review process, as is in your handout, is really, it comprises of really 4 areas. The unit tab, which this will identify strengths, needs, opportunities, and challenges of each area. You will also, each area will be asked to provide a broad overview of all the unit's outcomes and briefly summarize the unit's progress within the 3-year outcome assessment. So you can, and this information will be based on documents. So if you go down to the bottom of this handout, the documents will be supplied by the Office of Research and Planning, and there will be 2 data sets in there. And the unit will use that information to develop the strengths, needs, and opportunities, and they will use that data throughout the program review.
And if you look at what we handed out, this is a pretend unit that the committee developed in order to present this to District Governance Senate. We don't, in fact, have a bowling unit.
So I made it out of the sign up.
And what you can see across the top, which will match what's on the last handout, are the tabs. So when we say tab, literally, it's a tab at the top of the TrackDat page that you just click on. And when you click on it, the fields pop up, you go into it, and you type, type, type. And then you click on the next tab. You go in, type, type, type. So the unit will have a lot of the background information, and then you have actions and resource requests. So actions are like our prioritized plans that we have now. But one of the key differences here is that every time you put an action in, you have to link it to a district objective. One of the steps of entering in your actions is to link it to the district objectives, so that when, after a year has gone by, we can pull that information out of the program reviews in support of our strategic plan. So we're trying to have all these planning things work together, and with TrackDat, it should simplify everybody's task. And in the process of developing your actions, that's when you're allowed to ask for resources. So whatever resources you'd like to ask, again, it'll be a button. You click on it, you go in, you type in what you want, what the requests are. And we've been working with the TrackDat implementation group and TrackDat business to come up with the appropriate reports so that we could pull out that information that we needed. For example, the budget committee will need to have certain subsets of the data in order for them to make resource allocation decisions. They don't want to have to read everything in here, so we've been working on trying to make it streamlined for them as well.
So now, where you have the proficient, how is it gonna be, each one will get some sort of,
No, it's gone.
that's not.
There's no more rating of program
Even
reviews.
for the overall program.
That's correct.
No, it'll be the dean's job to make sure it's right. So, that it's complete and thorough and everything is there that should be there. And if it's not, the dean or that administrator will make sure it does get in there before it is forward to the vice president or president.
Graded pass fail.
Right.
Right. So as a board, what would we be looking for just for the data that we need that's important? Because in our accreditation training, they've made it pretty clear that this is one of those areas we need to ask for honest evaluation and assessments of our program. So what would we be looking for? A report from our deans then, I guess, is what you're
Well,
telling me?
and part of the issue will be is the analysis of prior year's allocation. So if I get money to buy equipment for biology, so I go out and I buy my equipment. When my unit does program review next year, I have to enter in what was effective about the use of that resources. We're developing a report where they're going to come out. So that then the budget committee can look at it and say, well, we gave this amount of money to biology, but you know what, they didn't really get much done. So it's an evaluation of the effectiveness of the resource allocation. So that would be a report that you would look at. We're going to be having reports in here about how far along people are with their assessment cycles. So are they keeping up with their 3-year cycles, yes or no? That will all be in there. So again, we'll just run those reports out, and I'm assuming it will just basically say, here are the units, this is what they have done or they don't have done.
And it probably, the reports shouldn't be, they're not lengthy. And we're going to start the training February 6th, 16th, I think, actually. So what we're encouraging people is since it's every year, don't have a lot of actions or a lot of initiatives. Keep it to 3 or 4, not 10, 15, or 20. That almost makes it impossible to get done in 1 year. So the report, we're still working on the reports, but I think, Lori, the reports you will see or what we can provide for you or for you to look at are very concise and very thorough. And I think would answer probably what you maybe the report. Yeah.
Just a couple of things. The faculty are the ones that fill these reports out, right? Are you getting pushback from them, or are they buying in?
Well, it passed the academic senate without dissent.
Okay, perfect.
So, and it did go back to the divisions, and so I would assume that if there were issues, they would have brought them forward. There was only one issue that was brought forward that we tried to address, and that is those units that are entirely adjunct. Adjunct is not part of their job description that do program review. So we changed some of the wording to say that in those instances that it's the responsibility of the dean with some help from the division chair. They can consult the adjunct, but it's not the adjunct's job to do program review.
I thought we did something so they could afford to do it.
Well,
But that was the SLO.
Right, we provided additional support for adjuncts so that in the individual courses, Greg, they would do their student learning outcomes, they would assess those outcomes, and they would participate in the discussion and the ongoing improvement about those outcomes. This is a program review for a whole unit, a subject area.
Is this also going to be a way for you to get money from the foundation?
The above base funding, the way it's going to work, we've got an opportunity, I'm sorry, Tia, go ahead, take this. We have an opportunity in the program review for resources to be requested. That would, from that program review, goes into the above base funding model for the district. That list of items is probably going to be in any given year longer than what the above base allocation can fund. So what Tim's done is he's built into the foundation system an opportunity to take those items from the program review list that may be appropriate for request from foundation and filter them right into the foundation request process as well.
Well, because, you know, we talked about it in the last foundation meeting, and it sounded kind of like the same process to get money out of the foundation, that's why I asked.
The reason I wanted to clarify is there'll be a district source of funding and a foundation source of funding. And program review requests will have an opportunity to be considered in both, one or the other.
So, another question here, maybe, it's not that question, but previous, all of these, you know, under this group, these would all have to work together to do one program review, so that you ended up with one set that kind of, maybe some departments, I guess that's what you call them, divisions, would have more on there that needed improvement or needed more resource allocation. Is this in any way going to separate these units so that they don't all work together as a department to get stuff done and set goals that are unit-wide amongst this whole division? I'm seeing separation here. Is it gonna be,
Are they gonna be enemies?
you know, 8 teachers
Well,
working
actually,
for
in a way,
faculty,
it
you know?
makes it, there's gonna be one more level of prioritization. So the units will prioritize. But then all the requests go to the division, and the division prioritizes at that point, and then those priorities go to instructional council, who's responsible for the instructional end of who does that.
So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, 9 people, 5, they will be able to all get together then and look at their program reviews
Right.
all together.
Right.
I guess I'm just wondering, how do they all come
Yes.
together
Yes.
as a division? That's
Yes.
fine.
They would do that at the division level.
Okay, and then as a board, would we get something back on that? Because I'm thinking that's what we want to look at. I don't know, I'm just thinking, how will we, as a board, look at all of these? And we're not going to be able to, I know.
So I would, what I presented today was summaries, so we'll put together, I mean, each year it's my responsibility, working with program review and the division chairs to put together a summary of their report. So we'll, we're still kind of new in the process, but we'll find a way to come up with a summary report that we give you on all of them.
Okay.
And one of the things I wanted to point out, right behind Thea, if you look at the model for integrated planning, realistically where it should happen is the annual report on the master plan.
Wow.
Because the strategic plan, program review, they get their resources, they implement their plans, they assess their plans, and then we report out on all of those plans in the annual report on the master plan. So you'll also see it there.
Okay.
So Jennifer makes a good point. If I could add a little bit to that, Jennifer, when we haven't quite yet clearly defined, Lori, what the format of the collection of all this information is going to look like. But I envision what Jennifer just described, and that is that the board's role would be to look at least in some part, look at the annual report at the end of the year. That annual report, remember, is going to be centered around the district objectives. And then the data to support how the college as a whole has moved toward those district objectives is going to lie in the summary, the status report of these individual programs. So you're going to be able to see some smaller tables of data that detail the status of what transpired at these unit levels. It's still going to be the board's responsibility to ask us, quiz us as administrators and faculty leaders, how are these things getting us, show us the connection between these things we're doing at that unit level and achieving these district-wide objectives. And our job is going to be drawing lines for you from one to the next. But you'll be able to see at an individual department or unit level those individual status, what their status is, and make some thoughts or judgments about that. But the bigger question for you as a board is, are these things helping us meet those objectives?
Okay. Any more questions?
I just like the sound of it. It sounds like we're definitely going in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful. Okay, we will move on to item number 6, our board and executive staff report, starting with our student trustee report. Diana, thanks for staying.
We have not met since the last time I saw, I was here at the board, so I haven't had this report, but class starts tomorrow.
Okay, and good luck. Okay, any board member reports? Okay.
On Friday, I had the men's basketball fundraiser that was held at the basketball Porterfield House. And it was first time I attended that particular function, and it was very nice. And I think they did a great job in raising funds, and it was very good.
Any other board member reports? Stan, I'm sure is going to report on or you already did a convocation, but I'll just add.
Yeah, you should share your experience of our trip.
Of our
For sure.
trip, we had a fun trip, a long day. Thea, thank you for driving. We made it there and back in, it seemed like record time, really, and Thea doesn't drive that fast. It's just, no stopping with Thea. That's right.
We were told you can buy the big gold, but save your cup.
No, actually, you have a lot. Yeah.
That was me.
I will say, as your board president, and being in situations where times there are, situations and issues that come up where I guess maybe I'm a little nervous, or I'll feel like I'm not quite up to date on something, or I need a little more information. But out of all my COS experiences, that was by far the most intimidating. If you call it that, it wasn't that bad. We did get only our 5-10 minutes of fame. Stan did a tremendous job in that short time they gave him to tell them what we did, and also ask for what we want from them. I think that was critical. It was just, I felt a real sense of accomplishment. I'll be honest, I had to really reflect on this year and all the time and energy that's been put on by so many people. And for Stan to be able to sum that up, I feel he did a tremendous job, and we felt good about what they said about what the college has done. But what I really liked is that it was understandable, and I feel that anybody from the college hearing that report that's had anything to do with accreditation could almost walk through the process of everything we've been through this last year and know that it's all been productive and good, and a lot of great things have happened. And I think the ACCJC heard that. We're hopeful for something good to come out of there. Now we wait and see, and that's the annoying part, because we have to wait 30 days. And I know why we do. I was a little perturbed that we have to wait that long, but I felt really good about it. And I want to thank my board members and everybody that's had anything to do with accreditation. Stan summed it up, and I think I know we're on the right road. You talked about a convocation. Those are my observations from that day. So. Okay, foundation report. Mr. Foster.
Hello again. First of all, I'd like to comment on a board resolution that the board of directors passed after hearing a lot about what had taken place in preparation for this accreditation visit and how the visit went. So I'd just like to read the foundation board resolution, which was on this day, November 19th, the COS Foundation acknowledges and appreciates the district accreditation team, trustees, and district staff for their hard work and dedication toward successfully preparing for the recent ACCJC site visit. It is the board members' belief that the College of Sequoias Community College District is stronger because of these efforts, and that the communities the district serves will also benefit from a stronger college. Thank you for your leadership. The COS Foundation board members are encouraged by the progress and remain a dedicated partner in providing the resources needed for student and program success.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Along those lines, I can say that the board is preparing to determine where to spend $105,000 towards a student's success. We have an application process well underway right now. The deadline is January 31st. And so we will have a time to evaluate proposals that come through that process, as well as the above base spending process. So we'll be able to see both of those projects that come from either application process and make some choices. My hope and expectation is that the sum total of the requests that come through both mechanisms are going to far exceed $105,000, and that's kind of on purpose, so that both the foundation board and all of us understand that, and the community understands that we have needs that far exceed our existing resources, so we need more resources. And so we'll go about finding those. Along the lines of finding more resources, I reported at our last meeting that about the outcomes of the Power of the Purse. What I was unable to report at the time was the outcomes of the Hanford Christmas tree auction, which we had a great turnout there. We had a great presence there. Thank you, Superintendent Stan, for being there and addressing the whole group. A group of community leaders. Thank you, John, for being there as well. We raised some money there, about $4,300, and we also were able to have the foundation board look back at the prior year Power of the Purse event and realize that it did not spend all of that money that was raised that time, and so they went ahead and allocated that prior year money forward. So we're able to, through the Power of the Purse efforts over the past 2 years, designate $20,000 towards $10,000 towards books, and you can tell how Mary Catherine was very happy about that. Those are textbooks. We're buying textbooks to put in the library for students to loan out and borrow in that, generally in that intermittent period between when they got the class or might get the class and when they can get their hands on the book. We also have $10,000 for scholarships that will be awarded in this 2014. And similarly, thanks to the resources raised in Hanford, we have $1,440 that will go towards books for the Hanford campus specifically. The $10,000 for Power of the Purse, because it was a foundation-wide effort, those monies will be distributed for books across all 3 campuses. The $1,440 will go to Hanford, and the remaining $3,000 will go to scholarships specifically for Hanford. So the foundation is being very careful and very cognizant about what we raise in the community. We want to affect and benefit the campus within that community. Also, I was fortunate enough to receive a $25,000 check this past week from Edison International. They're funding $25,000 worth of Edison International scholars or scholarships for the 2014-2015 year. Those are going to STEM students, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And those awards are going to range between $1,000 and $5,000, and they're only for continuing students or those that are transferring to a 4-year university. So that is definitely one of the more substantial corporate contributions to COS scholarships that we've received. Also, since we last spoke and you were here for the announcement of the COS Theater, having a wonderful opportunity to go to that festival, well, that opportunity comes with cost. Turns out the cost, if we pay for everything that needs to be paid for, it's about $30,000. So we mounted a campaign shortly after your last meeting and proceeded to find sponsors. So far, we did get an Educational Employees Credit Union for $5,000. We have a few other birds in the bush, so to speak, people that are considering it. We are also obviously have the 2 shows, and we're going to be selling VIP tickets to one of the shows. So there's a little pre-party, a little reception during the intermission for those, and certainly priority seating for that showing. So you'll hear more about that via email. So we're getting those donations in. Certainly the theater group had already done some fundraising, so they got $3,500. So it's looking really good, but we have a very short amount of time to make it work, and so we're working as fast as we can. The scholarship application process is still underway. As you know, the deadline is already passed, and so we got our scholarships. We did get 617 applicants, but then there was the process of making sure that those who were asked to submit a letter of recommendation on behalf of those applicants had a window of time beyond the last day of submission to submit their part. So that deadline was on January 6th. Also, you'll be happy to hear that we have sold 2 duplexes from the Building and Trades Foundation. We sold them for $425,000, which resulted in net proceeds of $396,070.67, far and above what is necessary to pay off the loans from the Building and Trades Foundation to the district. And the remaining funds will be set aside within the foundation after the Building and Trades Foundation liquidates. It's going to dissolve into the foundation. We will keep those funds separated for the district to use for any building and trades programming that should arise in the future. And we have some upcoming events. The Visalia chapter meeting is on Tuesday, January 21st at 4:30. The Tulare chapter meeting is Wednesday, January 22nd at 7 a.m. Yes, that's back-to-back meetings. We have an executive committee meeting on Tuesday, January 28th at noon. We have the Midsummer Night's Dream VIP night Friday, January 31st starting at 6 p.m. And then we have the foundation annual meeting Thursday, February 6th, starting at 4 p.m. And we have some wonderful new candidates, volunteers that should be elected on that evening. So we're really excited about that.
Thank you, Mr. Buster, for a very thorough report. Sounds like you're doing great things.
We're trying.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Mr. Buster? No? Okay, Dr. Lister, on accreditation report.
Thank you. As was mentioned, we had Dr. Trimble and Superintendent Carasosa and President Cardoza and I all headed to Sacramento on Thursday. And what the important part is that we have received the report and we were able to hear from the commission. The unfortunate part that President Cardoza mentioned is that it is confidential until they have taken action. And so all of the information remains confidential until they report. And the reason it takes 30 days is because they, the commission themselves, the staff, have to prepare all of the letters for everyone that's taken action. And so they get those all out at one time. But I do have to say, walking into the room of 25 people, straight across the table was the commission staff, all of who have everyone, 3 of who have been here this past few months, Dr. Bino, Dr. Clifford, and Jeff Pond. And it was great to walk in and see them all smiling at us, so that felt kind of good. So like, at least there were familiar faces in the crowd. I would say for me, the important things were, the first was I felt like they really recognized the hard work that we have accomplished and that everybody did, that the staff, faculty, administrators, and students all worked together and completed an incredible amount of work, and it felt recognized. And one of the things I just want to throw out there that we haven't mentioned is one of the people did mention that they really, really liked the 2.0, the branding. And so Stan hadn't mentioned that before, so I wanted to make sure to mention that because we were very impressed with the 2.0 branding. The editing team who spent countless hours the last few months writing the report, and we all gained 15 pounds eating chocolate during those last 2 months, and some of us are here to attest to that. We are meeting, and so although we, our report, we don't know exactly what we'll be writing about again. We're meeting, we're putting together the templates and the outlines and the materials that we need to start writing again, and that team will really be evolving in kind of into an accreditation writing team, basically. And so we will be preparing to put together the next report that we expect. We will know, but we expect, there's a lot of different things that can happen, but we do expect that we will have another report due in October. They could request something earlier, but that's kind of what we're shooting for right now. So we're prepared and meeting and ready to do that. That group, there's 6 people in that group. We will be attending a 2-day accreditation institute that's being put on by the Academic Senate in February, and so we're prepared to go down there, and we will have our report by then. Well, it still won't be, it should be within a day of being like public, so we'll be ready to at least have some good questions about how to proceed there. And then I also wanted to mention one of the things that we had requested from the commission was that we could have more faculty, staff, and administrators on visiting teams to help us expand our knowledge. And so Dr. Trimble and Superintendent Carasosa will be participating in visiting teams at other colleges this semester. So we're looking forward to getting more experience through that process. And that is the basic update on accreditation. Any questions? Okay.
Questions? Okay, our superintendent president's report.
So the only thing that I'll add to everything that everybody's mentioned about the accreditation visit is that we do expect to have our action letters in the next 30 days. We think around February 10th. I sent an email of appreciation today to Dr. Bino and the ACCJC staff, thanking them for the arrangements they made for us to be there last week, and asking for her to clarify for me as we get ready to receive our action letters what the exact protocol for that is. Because last year when we were actually a recipient of what was ultimately a show cause order, the ACCJC staff was authorized to call the president and superintendent of that college a day in advance of the receipt of your action letter, so that you had at least 24 hours to prepare for communication, information, the media, the public. So I'm asking if that happens in this type of a response as well. If so, allowing us to plan and prepare. Kevin McCusker's been really great in public information helping. And actually, if we're going to trace credit to the metaphor of COS version 2.0 all the way back to its origin, it's Kevin and Dave, and they're thinking about how to put a metaphor in place that we would all be able to wrap our heads around a little bit. But also planning for our public announcement of what happens now when we get our action letter. We're actually planning a press conference. We've all been a little nervous, and you heard me talk at accreditation about my fear of how the right message can be shared the wrong way. And so we feel like at least a press conference is an opportunity to invite everybody to hear information orally all at once at the same time on some form of public record, whether it's a news channel or a video or even just our own college cameras. At least we'll know what we said. And so then there's some accountability to how the reporters print it, because you've had a chance to say it publicly. So we'll be notifying all of you, Dr. Trimble, our writing team, our faculty, because we'd like to have as many people as possible attend that press conference, be recognized, be acknowledged, and then we'll share that information publicly at once, so that we get the information out there to the very best of our ability. And you know, good, bad, or otherwise, share what it is and what our next step is. And that press conference is being scheduled right in there around that February 8th, 9th, 10th period, because that's when our 30-day mark is up. So we're holding those days and keeping some flexibility in there. Normally, to make a 4 or 5 o'clock news or a reporting deadline for a newspaper the next day, you're going to schedule probably a 2 p.m. press conference. Okay? But we'll get more information to you on that. Okay, just another quick reminder, and for the public's benefit, we do hold a special study session during the month of January each year. It's known as the annual board retreat, and that's scheduled this January 24th and 25th, which is a couple of weeks away, but it's a Friday all day and a Saturday part day where the board convenes, and it's both open and closed session. But the Friday is dedicated fully to an open session opportunity for the board to review a number of critical issues, including accreditation response and learning more about COS 2.0, understanding new systems and the questions we've been talking about earlier. What's the board member's role, and how can we plan this next year to effectively as possible play our role as we've learned we're supposed to now in response to holding the institution accountable and supporting it properly. So we're excited about the retreat. And then just a point of information at your places this evening, I had a couple of handouts for you to take home. They may be of interest. Hot off the press today, the Community College Board of Governors approved the recommendation in the Student Success Act for the change in how Board of Governors, or what we know as BOG waivers, are going to be implemented for students who are in need of financial aid. And the gist of it is that effective 2016, students will only maintain their eligibility for Board of Governors waivers under the Student Success Initiative, so long as they're in positive academic standing. So that's a shift. And I think we have to spend a lot of time in the next year communicating that and over-communicating that to students, because it has the potential to have an effect on enrollment and student success and everything else. But I think the fundamental premise there is that if the government is going to be subsidizing the cost of your attendance in community college, then you as a student need to share in that responsibility by maintaining a satisfactory grade point average. And then the other handout I included for you, many of you asked a week or so ago when the news story broke in the San Francisco Chronicle about the court ruling on the case with San Francisco Community College and their accreditation. I get the first Monday of every month an update from the Chancellor's office, and I highlighted for you what Chancellor Harris sent to us. This is posted online. It's on his website for all folks to get. But I gave you a copy, easy to read in the morning, maybe with a cup of coffee. And then we attach the actual San Francisco Chronicle article so that you can make a little bit of sense of what's actually happened in that ruling. And then the last thing I'd like to do is defer the remainder of my time to make a special introduction this evening. As is customary when we have a new division chair appointed, we'd like to bring them before the board and make a formal introduction. And I'd like to introduce first our dean, Cindy Delane, and then she'll introduce our new division chair.
Well, it's with pleasure. I'm going to be introducing Dr. Terry Payton. Terry graduated from Mount St. Mary's College, the second best college in this state. We're both alumni of Mount St. Mary's College, so just want to go on record for that. In Los Angeles, I said second best, not the best. Nursing program.
I was thinking COS. Where's everybody else then?
Nursing program. And completed her bachelor's at UCSF. During this time, between Los Angeles and San Francisco, she worked in critical care was her specialty, so worked in many UCLA and up in the San Francisco hospitals in critical care. Then after moving to Visalia, she switched her interest, which is one of the great things about nursing, and she focused on ambulatory care and surgical nursing, and at that time obtained her master's degree from Regis University. And we were lucky enough to obtain Terry in 2006 as a full-time nursing instructor. And she primarily teaches and works in clinical in those critical care areas such as intensive care unit. And we're very proud of her. She completed her doctorate in nursing practice in 2012. And the focus of her research was a descriptive study of nursing students' experiences using high-fidelity simulation. So Terry continues to actively participate in the many necessary mandates and initiatives that are part of the nursing program, and we are just very happy to have her and excited for her work as the division chair. So with that, I present Dr. Terry Payton.
Thank you. My voice is a little shot. I don't think I've talked so much in months that I did today, so this is a long lecture day. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm proud to be the Allied Health Division Chair. It's going to be quite a challenge. Every day is something new. I didn't realize that was part of my job. So it's going to be a great learning experience, and I'm looking forward to it. Is anybody? Yes?
Well, welcome and congratulations. Any board members, any questions?
We thank you in advance for everything we know you'll do.
Usually someone think of one, but I think we...
Well, one thing I'd like to touch on is there's going to be a lot of changes in the nursing program coming up. We're kind of at the final stages of the TMC model for nursing. The final vetting just closed. And with that, how it affects our nursing program and all the community college nursing programs is they're going to decrease the overall units of the program by 6. For us, it will be 6, because we're a 42 unit nursing program, and we're going to have to drop to 36. So it's going to have an impact on our faculty as far as load. It's going to have an impact on our students as far as getting prepared to practice. But the goal of that is they're trying to kind of mainstream and develop this articulation program between the community college and the CSUs to get the amount of nurses out with bachelor's degrees. That's the Institute of Medicine goal. So we're going to be looking at a lot of challenges in the next few years. We're ready. Our program's ready. We have a reduced curriculum pretty much on standby. But from what I understand, the CSUs are back on their feet. So I'm glad it's them and not us. As long as we can hold out, I'd like to do that, because I really hate to see cutting nursing required courses back. It's going to really hit their clinical time and so forth. So that's going to be one of our big challenges and my goal to facilitate and help that transition.
how are our nursing students that are graduating now? Has the job market improved somewhat? I hear mixed.
It's mixed. The facilities are really wanting to hire bachelor's nurses because not only are they trying to meet, I believe the goal is by 2020, the Institute of Medicine want 80% of our nursing workforce to have a bachelor's degree. And that's a huge goal. And unfortunately, to meet that goal, they're cutting, I believe, quality of the program, just so you can meet a degree. Well, what's followed suit are the hospitals as well. So, and with magnet status that Kuya Delta has acquired, they require, or their goal as well for their status accreditation is to have 80% of their nursing force with a bachelor's degree as well. What we're finding, especially because I teach the last semester, is, in fact, I ran into a couple of graduates today on campus from December, is they're jumping right into the bachelor's degree. So I'm seeing a lot more nurses just going straight into furthering their degree. And once they have that bachelor's degree, it's a quick hire. So what determines that is supply and demand. So if you don't have a lot of nursing openings in the hospitals, then they can pick and choose. But once that nursing shortage, that predicted shortage kicks in, they'll hire every RN they can possibly hire. You know, the problem we had is the prediction didn't really hit because of the economy. So a lot of nurses didn't retire, a lot of nurses at home went back into the workforce. So they didn't really have the predicted shortage, but it's there. It's there and looming. So it's just really supply and demand. I don't know, it's about the same for the hires. It's improved a little.
Yeah.
It's a little.
Terry, what's the additional units and time approximately to complete the bachelor's, to complete the degree?
It's
after our program.
It's not that long. It's a 7-unit transfer, and with some of the prereqs they require, like statistics, it's about 74 units. And once they get into a bachelor's program, they take very few, probably about 9 to 12 units of upper division general ed, like your history and those type of requirements. And then it's about a year of nursing. And the nursing is primarily community health. That is the big nursing course that the bachelor's students have. As far as all of the med-surg and the specialty areas of nursing, they've already had that in their license. So some of the changes are some leadership. Depends on the school. We have an articulation program with Fresno Pacific, is it?
Fresno Pacific.
Fresno Pacific. They're a little more streamlined with our graduates. The CSUs tend to make them repeat courses and do a lot of extra work that they really don't need to do, and that's what the state is trying to streamline. So it's, I would say, a year and a half.
So is that basically the two options for COS nursing students, either Fresno Pacific or Fresno State or?
Bakersfield State, Fresno State, Cal State Dominguez Hills has an online RN to BSN program, which are becoming more and more popular as most nurses are working. And working in the hospital, I'm really seeing a trend. Some of the older nurses, the standouts, the holdouts that refuse to go back to school, I see them in school.
Is cost a big factor with a place like Fresno Pacific? Is there a big difference?
Well, it is. It's more expensive than the CSUs. I don't know the exact cost, but I can tell you that a lot of the hospitals have wonderful reimbursement programs for tuitions. I think you have for CUIA, I always mention CUIA because that's where I teach. I believe you have to work there 1 or 2 years, and there for a CSU, I think they reimburse about 80–70% of the tuition. So they don't give a differential for having a bachelor's, but they will tuition assist. And I think those are going to become more and more popular as the hospitals strive to meet this percentage. Is you got the nurses, now let's get them their degree and help them assist with that. I think that's where they're going to get the most, I guess, voluntary action of the nurses to get degrees.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Having just experienced.
Do you have our graduates?
I had probably about a 50-50 COS graduates.
The one when I was visiting him, she was COS.
So yeah, he's glad he got in before the reduction in units.
I hear you.
And, all of the staff at Coed Health is great. I have no problem. One of the ones that really stick out in my mind is a very recent graduate. She graduated last June, I think she said, and is working in the cardiac unit. Excellent nurse, and she has a suggestion which she wanted me to pass on to you, which I will later.
Me personally, or the whole division?
But
Karen, she wants to see.
overall, I could see no difference in care from the BS nurse to the COS graduate. And a couple of them, COS graduates were from 94, 97.
You must have interviewed these people.
Oh, I did.
You have a lot of time waiting for that second procedure.
Yes, and so it was a very interesting experience. Just because I was kind of noting is that your person trained at City College in Fresno or Bakersfield or San Francisco, because I had one from each. I had one from the Philippines, and they were all outstanding, but I felt, and of course maybe this was a biased opinion, but I felt that the COS students were a little bit more attentive and a little bit more interested in caring for the patient than some of the others.
Well, you know, at the bedside, both degrees, the BSN doesn't make you a better bedside nurse. And strictly, if you look at the classes they take, it's not about the bedside, it's more about the community. Bedside nursing really depends on the person. If you have that skill, you have that skill. Some are better than others, like everything.
Thank you very much. Oh, John?
Would you explain to me from a student's perspective, why would they choose to go either directly to in the bachelor's program or go to COS in a bachelor's program? What would make a student decide what was best for them?
Well, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Myself, I piecemealed every degree I've had. It's been a stepping stone. And every time I went to school, I swore I'd never do it again. It's kind of like having kids. And then time passes and the pain sort of disappears and you do it again. My philosophy of going to a 2-year program was it was a shorter time I could get out and work. And then you work for a couple of years and then you go back. As far as our students very frequently are first-time family college experience. The big university really isn't an option for them for a lot of reasons. Some of it's expense. A lot of our students work, a lot of our students are parents. So they don't really have the ability to pack up and go to a university. In fact, in the university, the 4 universities do not have the student capacity, the amount of students that they can accommodate in a community college. The community college programs are a lot more than the 4-year colleges. But if you look at our student demographics, they're just, for various reasons, they're not able to go to a 4-year college. Some of them are not much younger than I am. So, you know, it's just really not an option. And community colleges offer a wonderful opportunity. And they stay in the community, which is wonderful too. When they live here, their children are here, they stay here and they work here.
Okay, thank you. On to reports. Thank you. Are you done?
Yes.
Our reports, our academic senate report. John Trimble, no reports. Okay, our Costa report. Ms. Greer?
Yes, I have a report.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to say Happy New Year to all. Hard to believe we're already in 2014. And Earl, I'd like to say you look wonderful. It's amazing.
Thank you.
What a few good stints and some awesome nursing care. First of all, I'd like
to share a little bit about the results of the Comprehensive Program Review 2013, specifically in the area of language arts. It's under the heading, which we went through this evening, Language Arts Division Prioritization of Plans for the Future. The entry number 13, requesting Costa Leadership to initiate discussions with the district to explore the possibility of designating at least one full-time English faculty member as having his or her primary duties at each of the two centers, Hanford and Tulare. The potential agreement resulting from such discussions would address the issues of office assignments as well as possibly attendant scheduling concerns. It's Costa's determination that this is not appropriate for the request to be part of the program review, as there are established procedures for how items are negotiated between the College of the Sequoias Teachers Association and the district. These procedures can be found in section 13 of the Costa bylaws. The procedure stipulated in the bylaws is quite specific and does not include bringing requests into negotiations through the program review process. Additionally, office assignment procedures and scheduling are already addressed in the master agreement. It should be pointed out that the transfer procedures, which the association was willing to discuss and negotiate, were taken out of negotiations by the district early in the last round or failed negotiations. It is the contention of the association that if the district is to allow these within scope items referenced above to be included as part of program review, it ignores the established procedures and contractual agreements and bypasses the exclusive representative. As such, the association recommends that item 13 should be removed from program review report and brought forward in the appropriate manner. It should also be pointed out that an arbitration hearing concerning program review procedures has been scheduled for early February. That's actually been in the works for about the last 18 months, I believe. And is scheduled for the, if I remember correctly, 3rd and 4th of February. Hopefully the outcome of this arbitration will bring some needed clarity to the program review process. The second thing I'd like to make reference to is actually the convocation on Friday, our day to be together and look at the plans for the year ahead. Stan, you made reference at one point to, I think you called it near fatal car accidents. That particularly got my attention because in November, actually on the 5th, I was involved in a near fatal car accident and got to go through those doors at Clea Delta. And I want to let you know that the things you think about as you're going through the doors are, thank God for airbags. Believe me, those are critically important. And also the fact that all of our time is extremely limited here, and you never know when that might be over. The other thing that struck me during your presentation, Stan, was when you talked about the COS 2.0, and you made reference to cars on a freeway. I thought that was pretty creative. One car, I believe, would be the car that involves administration and policy directives, financial planning, and actions to move the college forward. And the other car, I think you identified, would be on the same highway, traveling in the same direction, but it would be the car that would involve the labor agreements and processes for grievances and processes for negotiating. I'd like to suggest that instead of thinking about two cars heading down the road together, that we perhaps think about, this was my daughter's, or my daughter's. It's bus.
Does it have airbags?
One would hope that the new one would. This is a 25-year-old variety from when my oldest daughter was a toddler. But to me, if we go together in a bus, we are able to improve our financial resources. We have an opportunity for being together and building relationships, and we also have the opportunity, by being together, to strengthen our relationships. So, my suggestion, not two cars
let's take a bus. Any questions?
Any questions? John?
Are you asking the board to take this process and delete 13?
I was gonna ask
Point
Dan.
of order, it's an information item for the board tonight, John. Her request before the board is that it be removed. That would actually be removed by her making that request back to the English
So
department.
this is just your forum?
Yes.
I was gonna make sure Stan answered that before you left the podium, so that's clarification for us, so thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. Okay, we will move on, CSEA.
I'd just quickly like to say how proud it makes me feel at the beginning of each semester to represent the classified staff. I see the hard work they do, the amount of hours they put in to keep this college running, and I'd just like to thank all the classified staff for what they do for this college, because there's a lot of hours spent that are not compensated. It's all voluntary, and they're just here doing a job they love, and they do love this college, and I'd like to thank the board for loving our staff the way you do and show. I also want to say I was very uplifted by the governor's budget he put out for next year. It looks like there's hope on the horizon.
Yes. Thank you, Stephen, and good luck in the next coming weeks. You're gonna be busy.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll have a good report for us.
I should
next
have
month.
no hair left by then.
Okay.
That's not all that.
No, it's not. I love it. Easy care.
Okay, we'll move on to information with our administrative procedure, AP 6505, Mr. Carrizosa.
Okay, if I could draw your attention to that enclosure, which is under our tab number 1. We're back to number 1 on the
Yeah, I
agenda. All
know.
right.
Very fast, it's 6:45.
This is Administrative Procedure 6505, and remember, APs come to you as an information item, and we just wanted you to be aware that we, in opening the Tulare campus now, and in having such a much larger portion of the campus be part of the operational agriculture program as opposed to the instructional agriculture program, there was a need to go to our administrative procedure and start to delineate the difference between the portion of the acreage that's there as part of the ag instructional program and the portion of the acreage that's there as part of the district's farm operational program. And they really are separate. There's a farming portion of the instructional acreage, but then there's also a whole portion of acreage that's, for lack of a better term, contracted out to a large-scale commercial farmer in an MOU agreement that allows that farmer to farm and take their costs back from that and then share the profits with the district. And that funding goes into the ag department funding for a sizable portion of that instructional program. But when we do work on those facilities over there, there's public works projects and there's non-public works projects. And the public works projects all must comply with prevailing wage. This divides up, according to the law, the portion of our farm operational acreage that's non-public works. So if we needed to do some improvements of a road and put some new DG down because the trucks that were contracted out to the farmer needed to get out into that farm acreage, that doesn't necessarily have to be a public works project and can be a non-prevailing wage project. So you can see here our attempt to bring this up to date with current law now that we have a larger ag farm facility.
Any questions? I guess I've kind of been involved in it, so I've asked the hard questions already. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar considered routine will be enacted by one motion, and items may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the board of trustees or any person in the audience considered as a separate agenda item. Do you have any items that need to be removed? If none, can I get a motion?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved by Greg, seconded by Ken. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consent calendar passes. Okay, moving on to action. Item number 9, non-resident tuition fee. Ms. Gack.
Good evening. We need to bring for your approval the non-resident tuition rate for 2014-15, thinking ahead a little bit. Our current non-resident tuition rate is $193. I'm sorry, I think it's $190. I'm may be jumping ahead. The statewide average proposed for 14-15 is $193. COS is, yeah, our current rate is $190 per semester unit. Most districts do charge either their actual cost or their actual cost plus a capital outlay fee. For 14-15, our actual cost will be $199 per semester unit. That's based on 13-14 calculations. We could also charge an additional $41, bringing it to $240, and that's the capital outlay fee portion. But our recommendation is not to charge that. And Ed Code gives a number of options for what you can charge. You can charge the statewide average. You can charge the actual cost. You can an amount that doesn't exceed any contiguous district, or you can add the capital outlay fee on any of those. So our recommendation, again, for 13-14, it's $190 per unit. We're recommending $199, which is our actual cost, a little bit above the statewide average.
Any questions, comments, John?
Explain your logic for not adding on the capital outlay portion.
From our end, Linda McCauley and myself actually thought that might be a direction to go, but in discussions with both Brent Calvin and our president, Marizosa, looking at some of the students that have to pay this, especially perhaps some of the athletes that are coming from out of state, anytime you have to pay a full unit fee, it's a cost. And there's just a few students that struggle a little bit. We looked at our averages for our surrounding districts, and though I don't remember those right now, I think I shared 5 of them. And most of them are at or slightly above where we are, but I think there was only one that was charging the capital outlay.
Does their existence, does their existence make the capital outlay cost go up?
I don't think that that's an easy correlation any more than any other student's attendance. You know, in a sense it does on a very small proportion, but I think it was just the cost versus the consequences of the results. And the board could do whichever they chose to do. That's just our recommendation at this time. We have charged the capital outlay in the past.
That was going to be my next question. Is this, so in the past we have charged that,
I think I only asked to see a 5 or 6 year history. I'm going to see what Linda, and I think we have not charged it for 2 years.
The past 2 years.
And
so
then
it's
how?
consistent with what we've done the last couple of years?
Yes.
And the push in the last couple of years really was, number one, we were in a fiscal crisis, but so were students and so was enrollment. So we were trying not to be a deterrent, and so we thought at least, yes, the economy is improving, but for one more year, we probably ought to not have any barriers that we have control over. We should not have any barriers in the way of trying to get the maximum enrollment. It's difficult enough to try to get it back in now that the economy is turning around. We didn't want to have any other barriers that might be presented that we had some control over.
How many students does this affect?
I have that number.
Yeah.
I want to say around 100 or less.
Yeah, it was 111, I think.
Okay.
100.
Mostly athletes, mostly.
I'd say 80% of them. So probably 80 or 90 out of the 110.
Thank you.
I would move that we approve the out-of-state tuition fee as recommended.
Second.
Moved by Ken, seconded by Mr. Zumwalt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, on to item, thank you, Ms. Gaffney. On to item number 10.
Okay, item number 10 is to request the board's authorization to pay off a certificate of participation that we still have outstanding here at the district, and to fund that with the Measure I bond funds. It has been being paid out of Measure I for a number of years, and as I put in the board agenda cover memo, basically our Measure I bond fund did authorize repayment of some costs, and specifically upgrading and improving energy efficiency, which is one of the costs that the bond measure has paid for, and parking lot modernization work, upgrading and expanding parking areas is how it was worded. And why I'm bringing this to you tonight is we've been kind of marching forward fairly methodically with all of our expenditures of the Measure I funds here at the Visalia campus. And we had listed in the next few out years, continued payments of the COPS, the annual payment amount, continued technology costs, be it one-time costs that arose or refresh costs, and even a little continued deferred maintenance and improvement maintenance costs for the district. But as I reviewed it, I got a little concerned. I thought, wait a minute, I think we're coming up close on our 3-year deadline for expending these funds. And not that we have to expend 100%, but you do have to expend by your bond authorization 85%. And so actually April 2011 is coming up very quickly, and that's our 3-year mark of our last issuance. So under the background, you can see that there was actually 28 million total issued, but almost 18 million was in 2009 fully expended. Almost 5 million in 2010 was fully expended, and then almost 5 million again was issued in the spring of 2011. And we have 2.7 million remaining, at least we did when I prepared this bond agenda. We've been spending that. But I am proposing 2.455 million, which is our COP, Certificate of Participation balance, to be paid from this. There would be a little interest, interim interest, to be paid out of the general fund. And that would bring the final bond issuance balance down to a very acceptable level. The rest would be expended fairly rapidly. And I do think Eric's been on top of what was in his budget, and I think Tim with technology, so facilities and technology have actually expended a lot of that remaining $240,000 in the last couple of months. I do want to note that this will free up $250,000 per year. It would otherwise be paid out of the general fund when bonds exhausted, and that was set to go all the way to 2027. So that's quite a savings. Yes.
And prepayment paid out the COP?
No.
Is there, are we restricted from paying the interest needs to be paid out of the general fund? It can't be included with the.
We're not restricted. At the time, for some reason, I felt better about just paying the cost balance. And from there, I think we could find the money out of the Measure I funds if we needed to. But I know that we had those 3 pockets delineated for the remaining funds. And I actually think, depending, Tim's not here anymore, Mr. Middlestead, you have almost expended all of yours. We were going back and forth with some emails, and I think his is almost gone.
So
I may not have that left.
So the
there.
funds were earmarked for other,
Yes,
so that's
yes.
that, you guys
I move we to pay off the COPs of 2.455 million.
Okay, been moved by Greg, seconded by Earl. All those in favor of paying off our COPs, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Yeah, not always supposed to pay off that. Right. Take that money back into the general fund. I agree. Feels good. Okay, item number 11. Stephanie's going to stay right there. Affordable Care Act standard measurement period. Item number 11.
Okay, tonight I'm bringing to you one item that it is recommended that we just basically have the board approve what's called a standard measurement period, or also called a look-back period. All of this is so new that no one really knows what's actually going to be required, but this is recommended from a legal firm that actually has come to ACBO, the Association of Chief Business Officials for Community Colleges, and gave a lot of great guidance on where we are. Affordable Care Act is this huge beast that we're all trying to learn what's going to be involved with implementation. But I want to share with you a little bit of what we know right now and how it affects the community college. So for 2014, there were supposed to be 2 very important implementation deadlines. One was the individual mandate. You may have heard that's still in place. It's a tax penalty for individuals not having health coverage. That's been a whole new story of its own. And the second was the employer mandate. A tax penalty was supposed to also go into effect. That was postponed actually a number of months ago. They decided to postpone it, the president proposed, until January 1st, 2015. But that's most of what I'm going to talk about tonight, preparing to be ready for that. The Affordable Care Act has full-time employee definition written within the law, and an employee who earns on average 130 hours of service in a month is considered a full-time employee. We'll get into that. That breaks down to about 30 hours per week is also their other calculation. But the key elements to avoid a penalty are minimum essential coverage, minimum value, which means the employee pays no more than 40% of the cost, and affordable, which means a self-only or a single coverage would cost no more than 9.5% of household income. And how you define household income is a whole separate issue, how you research that. But for our district, I will get into this a little more in detail, but we're okay on this simply because some of our most affordable plans meet all the requirements and cost zero out of pocket. So, okay, so it was effective January 1st, 2015. And I want to talk about two different penalties that we're addressing. The first is the employer mandate for large employers. And basically they're saying that if a full-time employee under the Affordable Care Act purchases and subsidized coverage on the exchange, the federal exchange for health care coverage, then we could be subject to that penalty. Also, as of January 1st, 2015, we need to provide information reporting name, social security number, benefits of employees, and dependents. And we do all of the first three. We're going to research what they mean about the dependents. We'll find out before January of next year. The first large penalty is failure to offer coverage. And the law reads that the employer must cover 95% of its Affordable Care Act full-time employee workforce. So they're giving us 5% leeway, and that's actually pretty important. If an employer doesn't cover the 95% though, there's penalties, and it's not $2,000 per year times the number you don't cover. It's $2,000 per year times almost your whole workforce. So you take your workforce and subtract 30 from that. So as an example, we currently have approximately 330 full-time employees that receive health care coverage through our college district. If we somehow missed 20 of those, and there's a number of ways that could happen, but my guess is you're not really going to miss one. But if we missed 20, we would fall to 94% coverage, and we would face a penalty for the whole district of $600,000 a year or $50,000 a month. So that's why this is really important tonight. We need to figure out how are we going to calculate everyone who's eligible for coverage and make sure that we want 100% of them covered, but at the worst case, 95%. So in addition, we would also have a penalty for the remaining 5%, and that would be $3,000 each ineligible FTE who purchased coverage on the exchange and received a federal subsidy. So if we deemed them ineligible, but then they went out and got the exchange, and later calculations showed we should have covered them. The penalty for failure to provide the affordable coverage with minimum value, this is the second penalty, and I don't think we're really at risk here, but I just want to share with you. It's $3,000 for each full-time employee that opts out of employer coverage, purchases coverage on the exchange, and receives a federal subsidy. I don't really understand that full bullet of opting out, but basically they're saying if they're your employee, we need to be on. And we are offering that that coverage. Also, we're not really at risk of meeting the affordability, as I mentioned earlier, because the employee has the option of plans that are zero out of pocket at our district. Okay, there's another issue that is just beginning to be discussed and researched, but the idea that we're dealing with here tonight is how are we calculating the full-time employees, the Affordable Health Care Act. And some of the employees that we maybe haven't looked at in the past, we need to make sure we're looking at and addressing. Hourly, part-time, intern, seasonal, full-time, temporary, substitute teachers, adjunct professors. These last four are the ones that maybe apply to us a little bit more. Adjunct professors, stipended coaches, professional experts, and student workers. And though we don't need you to make any decisions here on this tonight, I just want to give you a little more information because this is a lot of discussion that continues to go on. And basically, guidance is supposed to be forthcoming from the American Council on Education regarding some of these calculations, but it's also not, nothing's gonna be set in stone. We're not even sure if we need to formally adopt anything. We're just gonna kind of lay low and find out what guidance comes forward. But basically, we need to make sure that if a full-time employee earns on average the 30 hours per week, translates to 130 hours per month or 15, 60 per year, then we need to figure out how are we calculating those hours. You can use a calendar month, which is basically what you would do, that's the default. But that's not always preferable because you might have odd situations where someone comes in and works a lot in 1 month, and that might then designate that you have to cover them. So we are also given the option, and most educational agencies I've heard from are taking this option for adopting the look-back safe harbor method. And you count each hour paid for performance of duty. It would include things like vacation and illness, leave of absence if they earn that. And we would look at it for, these are 3 example areas. And we'd look back and see what were the hours they worked. Adjunct, the safe harbor, this is just a preliminary suggestion from the American Council on Education. And I did discuss this with the attorney that presented. And they said they haven't heard of any colleges making adoptions of any formal calculations yet. So again, it's just the arena that we're in. By January 2015, it'll be much more clear. But an example is 10 hours of instruction may lead to 20 hours of credit service. For our district, this was another bullet suggestion, but we're very safe here because if something's more than a 0.75 lecture hour equivalent or about 75% of a full-time course load, we do offer health benefits to those faculty. So that falls right in line. Stipended coaches, again, looking at not working more than 30 hours per week. But what's unclear to me right now anyway is how long can you average that over? Can you average it over a year so you can work more within a few weeks or a month? And then it averages out for less. They're still clarifying that guidance. Student workers look like this may not be much of an issue because there's a special caveat for work study in that you can exclude the hours worked by students enrolled in classes at least half-time who also receive wages as part of work study. They did recommend averaging for district student workers over 12 months. So an example might be a district student worker that works 10 to 12 hours a week. Just our district is paying them as a student worker. But in 1 month, they work 40 hours a week in summer because they're off of school and they want to earn some money and we've got some work for them. But we could then average that over the 12 months and it should work out fine in that calculation. So that's an example there. So those are just some areas of interest. Back to the standard measurement period. By law, we can adopt a period of 3 months to 12 months. And we've discussed this quite a bit. John Bratch with HR and our fiscal services staff. And most educational agencies are leaning towards the 12 months because of the fact it just draws out those averages. So it gets rid of some of the peaks and valleys and the highs and lows, and it just allows you to average it over 12 months. And so that is our recommendation tonight, but you can go as short as 3 months. The recommendation of the law is to also allow an administrative period. It's not a requirement, but it's an optional period to test the individual's eligibility, do these calculations, and in essence offer them coverage and allow them to enroll. The law says 90 days, but California being California, we only have 60 days. And so the stability period then, what's interesting, what I want you to understand is if our look-back period was 3 months, then we would only be obligated to cover them for 3 months. If the look-back period is 12 months, we are then obligated to cover them for 12 months. The 3 months is again a little problematic in that you constantly have to be doing calculations and putting people on and taking them off. So that's another reason we're looking at the 12 months. But the stability period is the next 12 months. If we have a 12-month look back, then we offer them coverage for 12 months. The district will not, this sounds like a huge job, but just a reminder that we really don't need to measure or calculate or do anything for our full-time employees for whom we already provide insurance, because those are the known employee statuses and positions. And the look-back method for ongoing employees says to count hours of service over the previous period, standard measurement period. If they average over 130 hours per month for the whole standard measurement period, so again, 12 months is a little longer, then they are a full-time employee for the related future period, known as the stability period. If If they're less, then they're not, non-full-time employees for the next 12 months. Boy, didn't mean to make this so detailed, sorry. For us, what we're proposing right now is November 2nd, 2013, which is passed, but that would be when we start our calculations, we would now look back to November 1st, 2014. The 2-month optional administrative period, which would take us right up to December 31st, 2014. Then we would have the stability period of 2015, right from January 1st to December 31st. And the same length for new employees as for ongoing employees. And then the whole process would start over again in November 2nd, 2014. For new employees that come on along the way, we actually have to give them the same 12-month period. And then at a later date, we get to catch them up to our regular cycle. So if they start on the 6th, we can just say we're not going to start their calc until the 1st of the next month. If you start on the 28th, 1st of the next month. So it could give us 12 look-back periods, but that was as low as I could get it in discussions with the attorney that was giving me some advice. And it may or may not be that we have that many. So a little accounting work to be done here. Whoops, that's the end. So tonight, basically what we're doing is recommending that the Board of Trustees approve a 12-month Affordable Care Act standard measurement period for November 2nd, 2013 to November 1st, 2014. Any questions?
Go ahead. Are you
I'm gonna approve it.
We have a diagram with some lines on it that we're gonna show you.
Just to let you know, I'm thinking we're approving this, but we really aren't certain about what we're approving.
My question is, our full-time faculty only has to work 20 hours a week by contract.
I think it's 30.
Yeah.
20.
20? Oh.
15 hours a lecture and 5 hours.
I'm sorry.
Right.
So my question is, will, in our adjunct, let's say our adjunct works 30, will the state come back or the federal government come back and say, wait a minute, you're full-time or only 20 hours, you've got to cover everybody that works 20 hours or more.
But our adjunct only they work 67% of a full-time load. So the full-time actual load is 15 hours. So our adjunct, the most they can work is 10 hours a week. And unless.
So we won't get caught in that.
Well,
there has a
I mean, according to these definitions, no.
Yeah.
So are you saying under the Affordable Care Act, since they work less than 30 hours, we don't have to cover them for health insurance?
That's true.
Well, it isn't, it's not a requirement that you meet that in order to, it's a minimum under which you won't be covered unless you have an agreement. We agreed to that. Because the concept, remember, is you may have 15 hours of instruction and 5 hours of office, but you have 10 hours or more. You have dozens of hours of professional responsibility that in our master agreement, we don't document detail by detail.
Motion?
You know, I think if anybody's going to volunteer to actually keep track of this stuff, they ought to at least approve their recommendation. I so move. And I'll second.
Been moved by Mr. Zumwalt, seconded by Mr. Sherman. All those in favor of approval of the Affordable Care Act standard of measurement period signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Christine.
That was one of the best recommendations.
I was gonna say, that's a good one, John. I'm gonna have to remember that. I'm gonna use that.
Is there any possibility that it'll go away in 2015?
They're saying no.
Not that we anticipate yet.
You can vote Republican in the next presidential election.
Well, I voted that way all the time, and it didn't help.
Well, we're losing your health by then.
Anyway, I don't care, we'll probably do a little crowd out here.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on to item number 12, correct? Yes. Roll call vote for notice of exemption, potential solar field project.
Last month, the board approved staff to hire at no cost an energy or a solar consultant to assist us in the process of determining whether or not we wanted to do a solar field here at the Visalia campus. That same consultant is helping us take the next steps for the possible project of getting in line for a low or no interest loan, which would be item 13.
part of that process to do the loan, the board needs to take action that the project, if we did it, would be CEQA compliant. CEQA is the California Environmental Quality Act. So item 12 is just the filing of the notice of exemption in case we do the project, that it is CEQA compliant. And I walked this with the environmental consultants, and the only thing that it requires is there's a certain number of trees out in parking lot 7 that we could not remove. And after we walked it, it was basically all the oak trees. Everything else would be in compliance. So if we do move forward, we take that into consideration. And I think there was something else related to an endangered species that might be making a nest if we get closer to construction. But for the most part, this is just the formality of filing that the project would be exempt from CEQA.
I move that we adopt the very first resolution of 2014.
Okay, have a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Mr. Nunes, seconded by Mr. Mann. Megan, can you please poll the board?
Trustee Nunes?
Aye.
Trustee Mann?
Aye.
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Zuma?
Aye.
Trustee Carter?
Aye. Okay, our first resolution of 2014 passes. That is so fun. Okay, number 13.
I would ask that you approve the second resolution of 2014 under this one, which is the actual loan process for the potential project through the California Energy Commission. This one's a little confusing, so I'd like to clarify. The current process that's always been in place has $25 million in it to the California Energy Commission, and it's a 1% loan for projects of this type. Proposition 39 has language to change that to a 0% loan process for projects up to $3 million. We are caught right now in the transition to the Prop 39 methodology. So they haven't even come out with the paperwork yet. They did adopt the language in December 19th, but they haven't implemented it as of today. So it's caught in the bureaucracy. If we are authorized to move forward to fill out the loan applications, it gets us in line for the $25 million under the 1% that would automatically shift to the 0% when they implement it. As of yesterday, today, the consultants tell us there are 4 others in line. So once the $25 million is gone, committed to, it's gone. We're trying to get in line just to give us another option should we do the project for a 0% interest loan for $3 million of what we estimate the project to be at $4 million. So the resolution that we're asking you to adopt is simply to allow us to file for the loan and help get in line for a 0% interest loan. So it's recommended that the Board of Trustees adopt Resolution 2014-02, authorizing the district to apply for the low, no-interest loan through the California Energy Commission. Let me explain what I think the next steps would be if we move forward with this. The Vice President, President, therefore the Board have to be happy with the parameters that we've set to move forward with the actual project. We have not committed to the project. What I would anticipate is that we come back to the Board for your approval to start the RFP process. That's the request for proposals. So if we get in line for this loan, or we don't get this loan, or it turns out to be a 1% loan, we want to make sure that it's fiscally prudent, that it's cost effective. At the point when we request from the Board to enter the request for proposal process, that would be when I would think we would be committing to the scope of work. Once we go into the RFP process, we would then come back to you with the most successful candidate offering to award the contract. And that would be anywhere from 3 to 9 months later. So this isn't committing to the process, it's just moving that down the road, the process down the road.
So if we get to the point where we say, no, it doesn't make sense, and we turn it down, do we owe the consultant anything?
We wouldn't, Greg, if that was now. We wouldn't if that was at the beginning of the RFP process. But if we went through that entire RFP process, the RFP itself is going to be 100 pages. Went through months of meetings. The league, California League, who's sponsoring this, would say they would probably want something. We got all the way to the contract stage. That's why we're requesting that we really look at this at the RFP stage. If you commit to going through the RFP process, pretty much means we want to do it. The only way we wouldn't do it is if the costs were just absorbent, or there was some malfeasance in the contract. But let me also say that the RFP process, because this is an energy project, doesn't follow the traditional projects that I brought to you. It's not a design, bid, build. It's a request for proposal. So there's negotiation involved, and there's just different codes that apply. So it's not this hard bid, lowest bid contractor. That's not what you have to accept.
I move we approve the resolution 2014-20.
Second?
I had a question, is that
Yeah,
it?
well, Sue by second, so that's a question too.
Okay, okay. Do we have a second though?
Second.
Okay.
I'll second.
But second, moved and seconded, questions?
Now, questions.
My question, Eric, is the additional million at 1% loan in your example?
At this point, well, I'm trying to get clarification on that, Greg. I'm sorry, Greg. Ken. Under Prop 39, Prop 39 has some real specific language about sole sourcing, which you could say under an RFP process. So we're thinking that Prop 39 may not allow, there's another portion of Prop 39. So we're thinking the 1 million that could be left might be through general fund, building fund, or traditional loan. I don't think it would apply to the 0% loan process.
When you say you're talking our general fund?
There's multiple mechanisms to fund it. There's anything to fund it. That's one thing we haven't solidified
But
yet.
it's not a loan that would be provided under Prop 39.
That's correct.
We're limited to 3 million.
We're limited to 3, but there's another part of Prop 39 that we're doing projects. We were trying to squeeze it under that, and that's the one that gives me $300,000 a year. We were thinking that's 100% free money. So what we were looking at, our hope would have been, if we could have got that free money, and then another 3 million of 0% loan, that'd be our ultimate. And I'm having consultants check in with Fred Harris in the Chancellor's office, and it's not looking that good, but I have to do one more check with legal counsel. Absent that, this would give us 3 million. We'd have to come up with the other million from another means, which could be a traditional loan. It could be any other mechanism, but not this.
So you'll have all the financing in on the calculation for the payback periods, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Any further questions? John?
Now, if we end up going forward with this, is this a 25-year deal? Obligation to continue doing it?
We would own it, so it'd be ours forever.
And the loan is for 20 years?
This loan, specific loan, is a 20-year loan, and based on calculations, we show that it pays itself off in 15 or less.
And we can approve this and then change our mind and there's no loss?
That's correct.
Okay, after the vote, I have some comments.
Okay.
One quick question, Laurie, I'm sorry. Does the resolution to get in line, to authorize us to get in line for the 0% funding year, and then later on, let's say we get our place, we're pre-qualified, so to speak, we're building the elements of our package, and we decide not to do it. Is there any penalty, is there any consequence for us having been in line and then pulling ourselves out?
The consultants have said there's not a punitive consequence, but it is the intent of the Energy Commission that people in line want to stay in line, but there's not an intent to fall out. So if you actually read the letter of the language, the board is authorizing us to take the loan. They're not requiring us to take the loan. And the resolution is the template from the CEC, so we couldn't modify it other than putting our names in. So I made sure I asked that question, and although it's a play on words, that was the interpretation, no punitive.
Yeah, because I think when we last talked about this, it was my understanding that we would have more data, more solid data before we actually had to make a decision of whether or not we wanted to go with the solar project. Is that everybody else's intention?
I changed my mind, I'd like to ask some more questions.
Okay.
I've been around here 20 years, and in that 20 years, I've seen numerous plans, land use plans, and what we're going to do in various parts of our campus. And we have changed our mind almost across the board on everything we ever adopted. Well, that's maybe an overstatement, but nobody ever considered turning this part of the property into a farm. But I mean, but the unused areas, we've changed our mind, changed our mind, changed our mind. If we go into this, we're gonna say for 25 years, this is what we're gonna do with that property. And everything around it is gonna have to adapt. How well have you thought out any potential changes to our land use master plan that makes you feel real good about being stuck with this for 25 years?
It's a fair question. It's a good question.
And if you can't answer it today, I'm gonna ask it again when you come back and ask us to sign the dotted line.
Agreed. And I think it's a fair question. And here, I would give you Eric's perspective. Eric's perspective with that would always be parking. It's already got a land use. We're not going down in student. It would always be parking. However, there's been 5 presidents and different board members that have different agendas, and you guys lead the path.
And with COS 2.0, for all I know, there aren't other bodies that shouldn't have the right to weigh in as well. I don't know. But,
That's correct.
Because we were positive every time before and we changed our mind over and over, I'd sure like to see the college come back and forth. Yeah, we thought about it, and but we still didn't want to do.
And I think it's a very good question. And again, if you look at every plan that's been undone, it's been undone by the leadership to change direction. We would just know, make an informed decision if we change direction, the cost implications. But it's the one thing I would say that I've seen is this land has a designated use now. It's not fallow land, excuse me. It's not vacant land. It's parking, and we know that parking is not going to get any less on the campus. But it could be changed with from the leadership. It would just be it would negatively affect that decision with more cost implications. I've certainly thought about it.
Remember when I got here, we planned to build classrooms in the quad out here. And, you know, so I mean, things can change.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Thank goodness that didn't happen.
I would love to say that we have a master plan that says that and we don't change it, but even a approved master plan gets changed all the time.
Well, Lori, those are my reservations, and however it goes. Well, I know it's just on answers today. We ought to insist on answers before we say yes.
I agree. Well, I'm just concerned over solar period, but I know some of those I'm not gonna have answers.
Well, part of that also goes to what they talked about earlier, working is make sure that the contract is such that we're not taking risks that PG&E can desert us.
Right.
Right.
It isn't going to be real reasons why it's not.
That was the item from last time.
We're gonna borrow money for 20 years, I want a 20-year contract that says how we get paid.
Okay, it was moved by Ken and seconded by Earl.
Moved by Ken and seconded by.
Okay, yeah, by Ken, sorry. Any further questions? If not, Megan, poll.
Trustee Mann?
Aye.
Trustee Goodet?
Aye.
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Zumwalt?
Aye.
Trustee Chambers?
Aye. Motion passes, resolution passes. Okay, last item of the night. Thank you, Mr. Middlestead. No change orders. We're on to solar now.
I
Give up one battle and take on another, huh?
Yeah, the curriculum report before you, shortest one of the year. Page 1 and 2 are modifications for 5-year reviews and repeatability, changing repeatability. Page 2 is 2 new courses. And starting on page 3 are deletions. All but one, well, no, actually all of them are for repeatability, so they're no longer being taught. Page 4 is modification of the AA degree, not for transfer for sign language, and the new AA degree, not for transfer for music. It's really revising their current degree. And the last one is a new certificate of achievement for our students who work in the Writing Center.
Okay, is there any questions about the agenda regarding curriculum? If not, can I get a motion to approve our curriculum new modified deleted?
So moved.
Moved by Greg. Seconded by John. Any further questions? All those in favor of our curriculum, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much for those who stayed, or few. We'll probably give you opinion.